We have a full agenda today, but before we get started, I just wanted to say a couple things. The first one, I wanted to just publicly share with everyone that I sent a formal letter to Mayor Siner from Charlottesville, just showing our support as a community for him and his city, and standing with him as he stands up and denounces hate and violence and racism and white supremacy. And then I also want to just thank everyone in our community who came out for the march and the vigil to again show our solidarity with the community of Charlottesville. And so next I will turn to our city manager to make an announcement.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I have a prepared statement, if I might, just so when you have moments and you want to make important announcements, I don't want to screw it up. So, after 35 years of service, 8 as city manager, I'm announcing my plan to retire. I have devoted my adult life to the city of Grand Rapids, and deciding to leave public service has been a very difficult decision. Arguably, few professions are nobler and can have a similar positive impact on the lives of people in our community. I'd like to thank Mayors Bliss and Hartwell and the 11 city commissioners, including the 6 good-looking ones right here, for whom I served, for electing me 8 times as the city manager of this great city. I gratefully acknowledge the visionary work of Deputy City Managers Eric DeLong and Scott Buer, with whom I spent many late-night hours planning for a future of this organization, and I might add one that never included bankruptcy. They are amazing leaders who will never be fully recognized for what they did for this organization. I also want to thank Rose Roslanek for 30 years of friendship and for being a loyal partner. Most importantly, I'd like to thank the dedicated staff of this great city. They are highly talented public servants dedicated to improving the quality of life of our residents. Every city employee pledged their service to this community, and together we changed the city. We are no longer accused of being a burden on our local economy. Now we are seen as a catalyst and partner for growth. I am proud to have served alongside these dedicated public servants, and proud to say that I am a Grand Rapids city employee. On July 29, 2009, I pledged my endless loyalty, professional management of this organization, and dedication to the improvement of the lives of our citizens. I promised that I would work tirelessly, inspire the best from our employees, and listen to our citizens. I insisted that we use common sense to bust bureaucracy, that we work transparently with our residents to make inclusive and equitable decisions, and that we innovate, be willing to take risk, be held accountable, and do this all very quickly and with great customer service. I would like to report that with hundreds of city employees working thousands of hours, we saved millions of dollars. So to the best of my ability, I fulfilled my pledge and my promise. We passed through some of the darkest days in our city's history. Everyone remembers the enormous deficits, rising expenditures, and shrinking revenues. Sometimes I think that you have to be crazy to work in this profession. Actually, I know that you have to be crazy. You have to be crazy in love with the desire to serve your fellow citizen and make this a better community. Our employees have made significant contributions to this community to improve the lives of our residents. We chose public service to serve our community, and in this organization, we have a group of servant leaders. Because if serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. This organization has been innovative and accomplished many things. In many areas, we established the best practices for this country. I leave this city in very capable hands. I have had opportunities to work with hundreds of city employees. I think the world of this staff. There is more talent in this organization now than at any time in our history. I leave this organization strong and healthy. Our capital assets including streets, parks, sidewalks, public buildings, public works infrastructure, and our fleet are being sustainably managed. Our employees' compensation and benefit levels are sustainable and at the median level in the marketplace. Our employees are customer-focused and motivated to serve this community. Our financial position is strong. We have the highest level of reserves in our history, and we have aggressively leveraged technology to improve our efficiency and customer service. Finally, I leave with this city voluntarily determined to address the issues that are plaguing communities across this country and limited our ability to become a great city. And I'm speaking of the issues of racism, equity, and I am confident that we will expose and eliminate the disparate outcomes within our systems. We have learned to use the tools of lean, sustainability, and racial equity. And with these tools together, we can become a great city and the envy of the world. Please give this city your love and prayers. Thank you, and may God bless Grand Rapids. Thank you very much.
As you can tell, it's an emotional morning up here.
Let's get to work.
Well, before we get to work, I want to say a couple things. And I know that all of us around this table will have a lot to say and to thank you for. But I want to start and just say publicly how much we appreciate Greg's incredible service to this community. You've dedicated your whole life to this city, Greg, and we are so grateful for that and for your leadership. Several of us, we were with you during the really difficult times, and we were grateful for your leadership to get us through that storm. So thank you so much. Logistically, a couple things. One, I'm also really grateful that Greg will be with us at least until the end of the year. That should provide this body ample time to come up with a plan to do a comprehensive search. We'll get started on that right away. We'll do an RFP to identify a search firm that we will work with. And then also we'll be working to finalize a process for both the recruitment and the search and the interviews. And we will ensure that it includes ample community input as well as an opportunity for all of our city employees to also weigh in. So that will include solidifying and doing a candidate profile, doing a search, and then having robust community input as we move forward with a final decision. So those decisions we'll be making as a body over the next week or so, but today is really about celebrating Greg and his leadership. We'll have time to work through that with Greg. He'll continue on, obviously, leading the city until the day he moves out of that office. And so I encourage all of you to be a part of this really important decision that we have before us. Commissioners, any thoughts? We'll have plenty of time tonight and over the next several months, but I'll turn it to my colleagues. Ruth?
So, Greg, I have so appreciated working with you over my tenure on the commission, and when I came on, we were in the throes of recovering from the Great Recession, and you led us out to create an organization and streamline it and perfect it in ways that I'd never imagined could happen. So we deeply appreciate you for that, because you have put us on solid footing, as you just noted, for the future. And your comment that if serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you was really moving. And I think that's true. Working in government is challenging, because when you want to make change, it's like trying to turn the Titanic, but you have turned the Titanic. And I honor you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Commissioner?
Greg, thank you so much for all of your service to the city of Grand Rapids, and I am very appreciative for the times that when I was not present, that that you and your team made sure that you led this community through a time of change, through a time of change that impacted the outcome that we're all experiencing today. So we are where we are today because of some of those tough decisions that you had to make, and you led this community through that, and that's your legacy. I think one of the great things about you as a leader is you make sure that you have a really good team to do the work. Not so that you can slack, but so that you can make sure that good work is being done consistently, and so that it doesn't all stop if you were to leave. And so I thank you for making sure that you have a really good team in place to move this community to where we are today. Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Well, Greg, I know that you just wanted me to serve with you every day that we could, so when I'm gone, you're gone. But
Not work a day beyond you.
I wanted to say, it's been a real joy to work with you. I think when you look at, you mentioned 35 years, it's rare for people to make a career at one spot. And I think that just shows, I know that we talk a lot about the work that you had here, but there were a lot of hours and learning that you had, and all your, that you gave back with your heart in different areas, whether it be streets or other areas that you had, where you gave just as much as yourself as you did within this past 8 years because you cared about the job. And it's a place where you can do great things and you can have that lasting impact. And I think that's what your career here has showed, is that when we needed you, when it was the right time, that was when you basically took over at the helm, which was to lead us through how do we get through, how do we change. I mean, we all no one had the exact answer, but we knew that it took a lot of work and it took a lot of structure and it took some innovative thinking, all of which you put in place or put a team around you to help you do that. And so to get to where we are now allows, others to benefit and work off of and step off of that foundation that was recast and reset to how do we redo government in the city. So that's what I'm going to remember most about you, and thank you for that.
All right, any others?
I think we're kind of going in order of seniority, so that would mean O'Connor and then Jones.
We are.
So, Greg, although I've only worked with you as a city commissioner for a little over a year and a half, we've worked together for years in all my various roles in the community, school board and whatnot, and I've always admired you. I've admired the fact that regardless of your position and regardless of the person requesting your time, you always give your time. From Joe Blow citizen to CEO of a company, and you give them the same level of respect and response, and that says a lot about your character. But I mentioned this to you when you called me on the phone. I said, very few people could say that they steered a city of our size and our magnitude through the worst time since the Great Depression, and we came out better on the other. We didn't fail, we didn't go under, we came out better on the other side of it. And so I think with that singular thing amongst all the other things that you've done, very few people can leave this position that you're in having made a mark that I think people for generations will look back at this time and say, this was the groundwork that was laid by Greg and the team. And you always are about team that got us to where we are today. So, congratulations on the decision. You told me about, spending time with family, and there's nothing more important to that. And so I know you'll
Yes, sir.
enjoy that time and keep that priority as well. So.
Commissioner O'Connor, any comments?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Greg. Being the architect of with your team and some of our colleagues around this table to get us through that financial recession and put the city on footing for today. And it's interesting, Commissioner Lanier and I were on the school board together dealing with similar challenges in a different governmental capacity. And I always said that those were challenges related to failures in the system and outside of our control. And, the challenges of today are challenges related to success. And so it's been, and they're different challenges, and I think they're equally as important and equally weighty, but just a different type of challenge to have to take on. And so it's been a privilege to be able to serve with you, trying to navigate some of the challenges related to the successes that you helped create. And you're around for a little while longer, so we still got to figure out affordable housing together. So
Trust me, Commissioner, I give him a list of things that we need to do before the end of this year. Didn't I, Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Commissioner Jones, any final comments?
Sure. I will say this, Greg, I may be a newbie to the commission, but have been around City Hall for quite a while, and I remember the days when you were serving as Assistant City Manager and watched as you ascended to the position that you're in now. And I'm a believer that your name means everything. That in fact, wisdom says that a good name is more desirable than great riches. And I think that you've positioned yourself well to where your name, when people say your name, they should think about things like sustainability. The fact that you were able to, as has been said on this morning, put us on very solid footing. That you have always, for as long as I've known you, you've always presented yourself as a servant and not afraid to serve. And I just need you to know that, when it comes right down to it, there's something to be said about if you're going to be remembered for something, why not be remembered for something that made significant impact? And so I just want to say thank you for your work. And also just, recognizing that, the ability to change with the times. I've often said that your job is not easy, simply because you have significant personalities to deal with, even though we all have wonderful personalities. The fact that you've got to juggle. And so you've done that masterfully. And I just want to say thank you, man. You will be missed. Know that. Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. So get used to that. No, thank you again. Thanks, Greg. All right, Commissioners, to move on to our agenda, just to put a few things on top of your mind, we have 7 items. We also have an executive session where we need to cover actually a number of topics. So we need an executive session for pending litigation as well as land acquisition. So immediately following Kyle, we will go down to the 6th floor for executive session and get started on those items. And then we have economic development at 12:30. Okay. All right, so with that, we'll move on to our first action item this morning, and that is a resolution approving a development agreement between the City of Grand Rapids, the Downtown Development Authority, and Jackson Entertainment LLC for a mixed-use project located on Parking Area 5 and a portion of Parking Area 4.
So moved.
Support.
All right, and we'll have Chris. Chris, are you going to get us started on this?
I think Eric's going to start
Eric?
us off, and then I'm going
Okay.
to cover some details.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. So we're here together. Chris and I are representing a team that is scattered through the room today that involves people on the development side that are from Jackson Entertainment LLC, J.D. Lokes and his team, and also then from our team, from DGRI, it's Chris and Tim Kelly. From our team, Kara Wood, Josh Naramore, Dick Wendt, Jonathan Klooster, and also from our engineering team, we've got Rick DeVries, Bree Stam, and Chris Barfus. So a large team to put this together. And what we've done together is come to you with a development project that we're proud to recommend to you. So your agenda includes a resolution that would approve the development agreement and would authorize us moving forward with the transaction between the city, DDA, and Jackson Entertainment LLC. So with that introduction, I'd like Chris to go through some background that I think is really important to understand, having to do with the Arena South visioning, and then we'll describe the project and answer any questions. So,
Great,
Chris?
thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, Mayor and members of the City Commission. I'm going to take you back in time a little bit to when I was a fresh face here in Grand Rapids in 2012. And one of the projects that we got involved in very early was an understanding of new development interest in the area south of the arena. And these are on parking lots that were controlled or still controlled by the city and the DDA. And we had a number of developers knocking at the door saying, hey, will you sell us some land? We've got some ideas and some projects. We felt at the time that it was important that we had a conversation with the community and we had a conversation with stakeholders about the terms by which organizations like the DDA would choose to sell land and for what. we didn't simply want to help to facilitate a number of projects. We really wanted to think about building a district and building a neighborhood in this part of the downtown. And so we launched the Arena South Visioning Plan. Like any good plan, you've got a steering committee that is driven by a number of different stakeholders. So you can see probably a lot of the names that you still recognize today as important stakeholders in our community. And then ran a fairly expedited planning process. And so the challenge that I was given by my board of directors at the time was, from start to finish, we want a final plan in 6 months. And so we needed to get out there and talk to the community very quickly. And that's where we innovated a number of ideas about have a plan, will travel, and went to a lot of existing groups of stakeholders to have conversations about what we were embarking upon and some of the opportunities in the area. Engaged a number of interesting types of conversations, including some things like walk and talks, which helped to really ground people in understanding the importance of pedestrian connections in the area and the challenges associated with east-west connectivity. Created something called the Brew and Do, a couple of familiar faces down there in the bottom. And this was really getting out to a place where people already were and having conversations about planning. And so literally bringing an opportunity to participate in a planning process to local establishments, obviously lots of media. And some of the key themes that emerged for this was the importance of connectivity, the importance of helping to create more density in the area to be able to expand on the number of uses, as well as greening and growing the neighborhood. That resulted in a couple of different site plans for possibilities. And I'd say that these possibilities really help to translate into key priorities that have emerged in subsequent development. And they include, number one is connecting Ottawa. So currently Ottawa terminates at Oak Street, and so we wanted to reconnect Ottawa Street between Oaks and Cherry, as well as improving through the utilization of active use retail, those east-west connections tying Granville to Ionia, and you can see a priority there, particularly along Oaks and Ionia, that those become basically what we consider the A sides of the building. So those are the front sides of the buildings. And then the introduction of this piazza. And then this piazza would serve as basically the southern terminus and really a terminated vista as you are standing near the arena and looking south. And so that this can be basically yet another thing that beckons the pedestrian and the citizen to be able to enjoy our great city, but also help to create this new public space in a part of our downtown that has a different fit and feel for the community at large. So this created basically this site plan that we utilize to help to guide eventual land disposition opportunities that have since resulted in the $65 million Arena Place project that's now open and doing very well. And today, for your consideration, the $140 million Studio C project, which we're going to talk about in more detail. So we also looked at things like height and transitional density and saw where height could go and best fit on the site. And I mentioned, of course, at the time we called this more of like a courtyard. Today we know it as a piazza. And got some great recognition, even from the Grand Rapids Business Journal, that highlighted not only what is a good plan, but it was the process that made it a sustainable element for planning. And then, of course, in a similar time frame, the Grand Rapids Magazine came out with this list of priorities and talking to residents about what downtown still needed. Grocery store, thanks to Rockford and Meyer, is underway. And of course, now this movie theater is something for your consideration. So it's been a long journey, a journey that began actually before my tenure here in Grand Rapids. My predecessor actually issued the RFP for the movie theater development. At the time, it was thought that it would just occur on Area 5 alone, but through this engagement process, really uncovered the opportunity for a bigger play and a bigger, more transformative play that will help to really build on the successes of the past and all the great things that the arena has helped to catalyze in the area, and really continue that momentum in building a very viable and vibrant downtown Grand Rapids. So you can see a number of the steps along this way. Eric mentioned the role of the team in helping to facilitate this. This has been an all-hands-on-deck type of project for both DGRI staff as well as city staff, so certainly want to commend our partners as well as the development team for being open to ideas about really how to respond to not only emerging needs, but changing priorities. Over a 5-year period, the world turns, and our projects have to turn with it. And I think that they've been highly responsive in being able to understand the changing needs of the community and our organizations as we work to build an inclusive downtown. So today, this is the site plan as we see it today, and so there are a number of individual buildings. What you see as item A is an office tower that would be a top retail. Right now, it is thought that this office tower could contain likely as many as 90,000 square feet, but in the development agreement, we are asking for a minimum of 30,000 square feet of office space in this, and so this is thought to be new Class A office with an attached parking option, which is going to make it very attractive in the marketplace. Moving now across to B and C. These are the residential buildings of the project, and these are going to be residential units. They are market rate residential, but they are built to try to hit a price point that's going to be closer to what you would define as this missing middle type of housing. And this will be also a top of retail space. And so all along B and then underneath B and C, you can see this, basically this pocket of retail to create that great co-tenancy that helps retail to be successful. Retail likes to be around other retail. Building D is the movie theater, which is a new component of this project. So this is a 138 key project, movie theater. Excuse me, I'm sorry, hotel. Building D is a hotel, which is the new component of the project, and that bounds Building T, which is the movie theater, which started the entire conversation. I overlooked the parking ramp there. The parking ramp is an important part of this project. The parking ramp is built to service not only the needs generated by the mix of uses on the site, but also to provide a surplus of parking to be available for lease by the city. So the development agreement that's before you today includes 300 spaces that the city would master lease from the developer to make available to serve district-wide parking needs. And then in time, we're hoping that the time will be shorter than longer. The developer hopes to build the tower atop of the parking ramp, and so that is what you see as G on this schematic. And this would include the opportunity for at least 100 new residential units built atop a pad that is going to be designed and constructed with the parking ramp. And so literally as soon as the market bears the opportunity, the developer is hoping to engage in the tower component. Here you can see an axometric rendering of the project in its totality. Some of, I think, the other important parts of this include that piazza that we talked about in Arena South Visioning. And this is a fairly unique concept for Grand Rapids that we are embarking upon, where we would have a publicly owned piazza. So the DDA will maintain ownership of this piece of dirt, but we will provide through an easement and a contract a relationship with the developer to program and maintain the piazza. And so this is going to be more of like a privately managed public space that creates the opportunity for us to be very intentional about a number of different programmatic opportunities while being able to share in that maintenance responsibility that oftentimes is a challenge for our local park system. And so some other elements within the piazza, you can see a very large screen, a video wall there that would have the opportunity to do outdoor programming, much like our movies in the park. And so there's an opportunity to really help to turn on this piazza to be a place of vibrancy 365 days a year. The developer has indicated that they want this to be a 4-season piazza, so it will be snow melted, and they are going to be working on components that really help us to be able to expand upon our ambition of being a 4-season city. So lots of things happening in the development project in total, but phase 1 would include everything that you see here, with the exception of the tower. The tower would come within a period of no longer than 10 years. Some additional renderings here of the piazza type environment and then aerial as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Eric to talk about some additional components of the project.
Thank you, Chris. So a nuance that's different from the prior term sheet is that instead of the city paying for and developing the ramp, the developer will actually own the ramp, and we will lease the 300 spaces, 300 cars actually. And so that is an important innovation because we increase parking supply without the capital cost of doing it. And so we're able to then have our capital available for other investments in parking or mobility within this area, which I think gives us a lot of flexibility with our other partners and is an innovation that we suggested and the development team found a way to accomplish. So give them credit for that. We'll also be, the city will be reconstructing, paying for the reconstruction of Ottawa Avenue, and then we'll be reimbursed over time by tax increments. And so I'll explain a little bit more how all that's going to work, because it's related to another part of the property transaction. But that will cost about $3.5 million. It will include access to the ramp, access to the parking that will remain under the S-curve, the surface parking that will remain under the S-curve, and also there's a development pad. We can go back a little
I
bit.
say, Eric, can you go back to the image that shows that?
Yep. So you
Or,
can.
I was thinking, don't we have another one that
One-
kind of is a little bit further out that shows it? Keep going back. That.
That might be the best we have right now.
All right. I thought there was one more that was a little bit further back.
So so you can see where the word Ottawa is below Oaks. That's the extension. Somebody moving? I didn't know it was a touchscreen. So you can see the Ottawa extension, and that will be about $3.5 million. We'll include the access that I talked about. But also, if you look a little bit, it's hard to imagine, but the S-curve goes through pretty much right over the end of the Ottawa extension. And there will be surface parking that remains that exists now, over 100 spaces or more, that this will provide access to. And then there's a development pad right at the corner of the Ottawa extension and Oaks to the west of the Ottawa extension that the DDA will retain and can then be developed at a future time. In order to facilitate, well, I guess there are a couple of other things we ought to talk about too. So in addition to the reconstruction of the Ottawa extension, Chris might want to talk about the incubator. So, go ahead.
And Eric, just to make sure everyone's really clear, the parcel on the other side of Ottawa that the DDA will retain is not part of this project. It's completely separate. So that's for future consideration.
Yeah, the developer has requested temporary access to that, so it would be construction staging during the period of construction, but then afterwards it would become the ownership of the DDA, for which we could consider multiple different paths. What Eric was mentioning was a piece that we also requested of the developer, and this is really a reflection of the DDA's interest to help to facilitate and incubate minority and women-owned businesses in downtown. And so what we have agreed to in the development agreement is that the DDA would enter into a relationship with the developer to be able to secure space within the retail component of this project. And so this would be very good retail space, so really helping a business, positioning them to be successful. And this is a place that we could partner with organizations. We've been talking to Start Garden and Spring GR, as well as Grow, about building a partnership through the pipeline where we might be able to make available physical space for the incubation process to help businesses through the various stages of business development. So that would be a component of this project as well. The finer details have not yet been concluded, but we'll have about 2 years during the construction period to make sure that we've ironed out all of the intricacies of that relationship.
So one final thing to talk to you about is an additional nuance in the property transaction. So you might recall that the US 3131 business ramp goes through basically bisects area 4 and 5 right now. And so we have to acquire that property, and it's MDOT right away. So our MDOT partners are in the back of the room. They've been very helpful in working out what I think is a very unique and jointly beneficial arrangement. So rather than just have it be a straight acquisition and disposition, we're going to work this through what's called a turnback agreement. And so we will acquire from MDOT, or I guess get back from MDOT, streets that are current trunk lines. So streets like Granville, the streets within this area, Division, Leonard, other streets that are above West Fulton, parts of Turner and Scribner, and it'll be phased over time. But the idea is that we will use and when we do a turn back, MDOT has a policy that they will do improvements to the roads that are the equivalent of like 5-year maintenance, so that like a road-to-mill resurfacing. So the value of that, but all these roads are in relatively good shape right now. So what we'll use the value of the road-to-milling and resurfacing that they would have done for is to net out against the value of the land. And so then we will acquire the land from MDOT, and then we will probably sell it to the DDA, and it will be part of the transaction when we close the property. The dollars that we earn from that will be deposited in the street fund to be used either to cash finance the Ottawa improvements or for other purposes having to do with the the right-of-way that we retain. So there's lots of advantages to doing it this way. It's a non-cash transaction, potentially, and probably. Also, we get control of design for streets that are really critical in regulations. So Granville Avenue, where there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of planning effort, is one that we pick up. But even the streets around this development, we have a little more flexibility with and can make them more pedestrian friendly. So for example, you see the design of the piazza actually extending into the street. That's something we're very interested in. And it's also something that would be very difficult if it were MDOT right away. So no fault to our partners in MDOT, it's just the way it is. So at closing, there will be the dollars will move back and forth. We have another transaction to complete with the DDA having to do with Area 5 and Area 1. All that will be done at closing, and we expect closing could happen within as soon as 90 days, but it could extend. There's a period within the development agreement that allows it to extend much longer than that if necessary. So with that, we'll take any questions. We recommend this project to you. We're very pleased to be at this point.
Thank you. And I see JD standing in the back. JD, is there anything that you want to add?
Good morning. I think that Chris and Eric have done a great job presenting the project. I would like to take just a quick opportunity to say that we've been telling people we've been working on this project for about 8 years now, so it may be coincidence and more likely providence that this comes before you on the day that Greg announces the end of his 8-year tenure as city manager. So I just wanted to quickly say, Greg, your enthusiasm for this community is contagious. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the last few years, and you are certainly accurate in that you're leaving the city in great hands with a staff of incredibly capable people. So congratulations on your many accomplishments.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions about the project if there's something that lacks clarity.
So I'll have the three of you stay, and I'll start off. Commissioners, just to let you know, we had a pretty robust conversation about this recently at our DDA meeting. And maybe to touch on two things that came up in that conversation that haven't been touched on today. We did have some conversations about really wanting density on this site, and some questions about future, or phase 2, I should say, an additional residential or an additional tower. So maybe speak to that. I know there's a 10-year term, but maybe give the full commission a sense of what the plans are for that. And then secondly, there were some questions at our DDA meeting about environmental sustainability. Is this going to be LEED certified? And if you've explored some of those elements to the design. So.
Sure. So with respect to density, I think, do these buttons go to a different?
Left.
Okay. Let's see. As you can see, we've tried to pack as much density on this site as we possibly can. The project is designed to be built in 2 phases, although the first phase is about $110 million of the $150 million project.
Yeah, well, first off, let me say it's great to see this project happen. I know it's been years in the making, and want to just say thank you for your efforts to kind of keep working at it to get it here to this spot. It's very exciting to see. One thought that I had, and maybe it is the same. I know that there's been a lot of concerns that we've all heard about parking in Arena South, and this is one of the plans to kind of help us long-term with that. Is it still a 900 space ramp? That was what was on the drawings there. Maybe Eric kind of helped me understand a little bit. I do like the fact that this is a private-owned one, and to your point, preserves capital within our system, and ultimately, I think, helps out and really kind of fuels the fact that the market's providing some supply. But can you help me with that question?
I'll say what the development agreement says, and then perhaps JD can say what his intent is.
Okay.
The development agreement provides for no less than 750 spaces, and we would have 300 parking passes in that 750 space ramp. But it could be a 900 space ramp. It could be more than 900 spaces, but likely somewhere either in that range. So I think that we'll be adding to the supply in either event because we'll have the 300 passes, which will essentially replace and add to the spaces that were there before we started. So I think it's good from that standpoint. But JD, perhaps you can talk about your intent.
I think that it's likely that it'll end up being a 900-space ramp, whether it's built initially as 750 with the ability to add an additional level when we put in the Phase 2 tower, or whether we just start right out with 900. I'm not entirely sure. We're looking at the economics of doing it one way or the other there. But we think that there's certainly going to be demand, particularly in this location, for a larger ramp. So assuming that we can finance it and all of those sorts of things, it'll probably end up as a 900-space ramp.
Okay,
And
thanks.
we've also added, Chris reminds me, we've also added, or are in the process of adding, the lot down by the market, which has over 200 spaces in it. So we're making investments in adding to parking supply. So between those two, there'll be a good net increase. And then there are other opportunities in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, and that ultimately, too, is a very good point and good message to get out to stakeholders in the area that have had concerns, is that we are adding, and this does allow us to also preserve capital to do something else if this doesn't eventually meet the demand that's in there. So I think that's ultimately a good part, and just a few concerns and questions that were posed to me over the last week with the announcement. So thank you for clarifying that.
And if I could just add one more thing, Commissioner, and I appreciate you bringing that point up, and I think it's a part of our work moving forward is to be able to create that larger narrative about all of the investments that are happening and transforming that area. Also important to notice here that it's generally the same net outcome, this ramp when it was going to be publicly owned versus now that it's privately owned, but with a substantially smaller investment by the city in helping to get to that outcome, so that the city can relieve itself of needing to expend $28 million to get to the same point where we're generally getting to right now on this site with the amount of parking that would be added and the net benefit to the community. And so I think that's a very strong message for the city to be able to demonstrate to the marketplace that, yes, it has a role in being able to provide parking, but through this relationship, we've also been able to find a path to work with the development community to be able to find a private sector-driven approach to being able to address this system-wide issue.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments?
Just a
Commissioner?
couple things. One, to underscore the positive aspects of this development, this private-public partnership around parking. I serve on Mobile GR Commission, and I know that Josh has been very aggressive in getting out there and having conversations with people in the downtown area about their needs and looking at surface parking lots, and of course the one by the market's coming in line. And I think another thing that is important to underscore about this project is that this is going to provide opportunity for our city's residents to come downtown rather than go out to the suburbs for entertainment. I mean, we already have a certain amount of things at the Van Andel Arena and the DeVos Place, but to add a movie theater, I think, will be a real amenity for the city and then, of course, our guests who come to visit. And I say that because I think that sometimes we don't message well enough about the intentionality of the downtown development area and Downtown GR Inc. to begin to provide experience. We've done a lot of building over the years, and of course this is an additional building, but the experience piece is something that when we went out to the community, we heard that desire from not only people living downtown, but in the entire city to have that opportunity come into their downtown, and now we're providing opportunities to reach this area through the Dash that were not there before, with much shorter wait times, 7 or 8 minutes, and many more routes. So we are working on that, and I think it's important that somehow we get that message out to our residents, because I do get those questions fairly often in my own ward.
And JD, you didn't speak to this today, but you may want to just add how the 9-screen theater is going to be different and how it'll be unique, and maybe add to what Commissioner Kelly said about creating experiences downtown for people.
Sure. I think that from the very beginning that our intent in developing this project downtown was to do just that, to recognize that a healthy community at large needs a healthy core, and the more that we can do to drive people downtown, the better. So obviously we have a lot of investment in theaters out in the suburbs, and we think it's best for our company and the community to do as many unique things as possible downtown. This is a theater that will end up with a lot of the latest and greatest of modern amenities in movie theaters, recliner chairs, liquor license, and expanded food menu. I think that one of the other unique things that we'll really be focusing on is the type of programming that we'll be doing. We now have very little technological limitations behind what we can do. So we'll be really focusing on a lot of different types of programming. One of our auditoriums in particular will be designed for some types of live performance, and it'll be our largest auditorium. So we'll be able to host business meetings or perhaps music or comedy or lots of other things that integrate with some of the other objectives of the city. And as Chris has mentioned in his presentation, a digital display that's on the piazza, we call it our 10th screen. There's 9 auditoriums, but our 10th screen that creates a public space that will create mostly free to the public events in which we don't necessarily have to pay an additional amount of money every time we want to put movies in the park or something like that, or World Cup soccer. We can just turn it on and invite people to come downtown for some unique event in the community very efficiently and easily, and have it surrounded by restaurants and parking and other amenities. So we're pretty excited about those things.
That is so critical. Thank you, because we understand the importance of public space. All you have to do is think about communities that are gated, and our goals here in the city, we're trying to look at everything through an equity lens. So the opportunity for a variety of entertainment to bring people together in this city, and then the incubator, they're both very exciting pieces. Thank you.
Commissioner Allen?
I'll be brief. Thank you, Eric, for calling me yesterday and spending the time walking me through this. This is a pretty robust document to get through. Being somebody that's done development, I want to thank everybody that's been involved in this, particularly the development team, because you've had to exercise a lot of patience dealing with lots of changes and lots of iterations, dealing with multiple layers of government, and you all, and I'm sure at some time every side probably got a little bit frustrated with each other. So at least we're here now and we're moving forward. I'm particularly excited about the addition and the requirement of the Women and Minority-Owned Business Incubator. I think that's an exciting development to this, because being somebody that has some knowledge about retail, traffic is everything, and you're going to see some pretty robust traffic counts here. So I think that could be kind of a start of something for DGRI that you could eventually grow even bigger, where how do you then take the business that's successful there and help them locate in a permanent downtown location, and what kind of fund can you set up for that? So I'd encourage you to take this as a beginning, and how can that be the kernel that can grow into something greater. Certainly MoDiv has done a good job with women-owned and minority-owned business development, but then a lot of those ends up not being placed downtown, but they move out of downtown. So just strongly encourage that. And in regard to the types of entertainment and types of venues, there's a lot of first-run movies or first-run entertainment opportunities that would be targeted towards either a Latino or an African-American audience that typically don't play in this area. And I would hope that those would be encouraged in the run, which would kind of create that vibrancy downtown for people of color as well, which we don't often see. So,
Yeah, thanks. Excellent point. All right, Commissioner Leonard?
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation, Eric and Chris, and is it JD?
Yes.
And JD. I have a few comments and a couple questions. It was good to hear regarding housing that you will be impacting the missing middle, that there will be housing that will kind of address that need. Chris, I'm curious to know what the difference is between a piazza and a courtyard. It looks like a courtyard to me. Is this a new word? What's the difference?
Piazza is harder to write in cursive.
Okay. That's all I need to know. And it would be great, to Commissioner Allen's point, I think it was really good to hear of the intentionality that's going into impacting minority-owned and women-owned businesses. I'm curious to know a little bit about how you're planning to make sure that the pool of contractors who work on this project are diverse. And then my last question is there a way to succinctly talk about the numbers that are involved here? What I don't want is for people to walk away thinking that the city is about to invest in a $150 million project. And what typically happens when we have these types of conversations, the real numbers that are involved with the city aren't really spelled out clearly enough for people to not hear and understand that. So if you could talk about what DDA will get for the project, which is around, I think, $6 million, or closer to $7 million, and then the city's $3 million, and then how does that translate, and what is the city and the DDA planning to do with those revenues? How does that impact everything else that's going around? Because typically, you know, when we have disenfranchised pockets within our city, and they hear about projects of this magnitude, they're thinking, why is the city even considering something of this magnitude at a time when there are some, you know, great needs in these other areas? They don't necessarily see our dollars as separate dollars. They just think if we're interested in this, we definitely should be pocketing money or spending money in a different area. So this, I think, is a chance to help educate the public.
Okay, I guess I'm going to start at a high level with this. I'm going to let Eric to fill in some of the other details. Neither the DDA nor the city is investing out of any type of general or discretionary funding for the project. We're generally utilizing the increment that's created through the development team's investment on the site. We're capturing a portion of that increment, and we're utilizing it to refund either eligible activities. So for us in the DDA world, that generally means things like fire suppression. It means vertical circulation to be able to provide accessibility in each one of the buildings, as well as some of the streetscape elements for the projects to help to improve the walkability of the area, making sure that it is designed to accommodate, actually it's designed to a universal design standard. And so those are the elements that we are interested in being able to basically refund to the developer through their investment. And so that's a big portion of our contribution to the project. We're also going to be partnering with the city to utilize that TIF stream to reimburse the city for the $3.5 million that it is going to front for the cost of extending Ottawa. And so that is going to be the dollars that the city will be out of pocket, is the $3.5 million to basically build a new road. And we're going to be utilizing that same TIF stream to be able to reimburse that investment that the city will make. And that's going to come from two places, from the brownfield as well as from the DDA. And then you have the largest portion of the contribution, which is approximately $17 million, that is going to be refunded to the developer for the parking ramp. So structured parking is an eligible activity underneath the Brownfield Act, which means that if the developer chooses to build it on their own and to own it, which also makes it taxable property, so they're going to be paying approximately $500,000 a year in owning that parking ramp, that they are then eligible to receive reimbursement to help to offset those costs for the parking ramp. And so the city's investment in this project are tied to those areas that are about really the physical components of it. So you've got the parking ramp, you've got the Ottawa Street extension, and then you've got those vertical circulation elements and fire suppression to help to protect the community at large. And so that's really how we're investing in the project. Some of the other elements, like the Minority and Women-Owned Business Incubator, is something that we would utilize basically out of any increment that remains after we refund the developer and we refund the city for the street. And so that becomes something that we can we can help to program through our general annual budget process.
Great explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And thanks, Commissioner, for asking that question. Appreciate it. Well done.
Oh, and then the contractors, diverse group of contractors, how are we ensuring that that's going to happen?
Well, I can tell you that we've just started our process to figure out who we'll be working with. Previously to this, we've really just been talking to the general contractors, who there's only a couple in town that can probably take on a project like this. And so I don't have a whole lot of clarity for you other than to say that it's a priority to figure out where it does make sense. We have had several meetings with a couple of people in the community who care about the issue of making sure that we're creating opportunities for minority-owned contractors, and that we're committed to figuring out the places in which we can do that. As I understand it, one way that we can do that is by chunking down some of the projects into smaller components that creates opportunity for smaller contractors. So we'll be looking at places where that makes sense to do that, but we don't have a whole lot more clarity around where exactly we're going to find those opportunities yet. So,
Thank you.
But it's part of our process.
Yeah, thank you. And JD, that might just be something that as you move forward in the process, if you just let us know, that would be helpful. So, thank you. All right, Commissioners, I think I'm going to move forward then. Seeing no other questions or comments, just a couple final things. I want to put an exclamation mark on what Commissioner Kelly said. I do think this is an incredible example of another public-private partnership, which I believe our city is really known for. I also want to call out a few folks who I know also worked really hard to get us to where we are today. So I see Dick Wendt in the audience. Commissioner Allen, when you talked about that development agreement, a lot of that was Dick Wendt who worked through that. So Dick, thank you for your support support. I know our partners at MDOT have really been instrumental in this work, so thank you. And then also Josh Nairmore, who, by the way, today's his birthday, so say happy birthday to him. Happy birthday. So Josh Nairmore and Kara Wood here at the city have spent quite a few hours working on this project as well and helping us get to where we are today. So thank you, everyone. A project of this size and scope and scale really takes a lot of people coming together to make happen. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone. So thank you. All right, commissioners, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, next that will take us to our second item. This is a resolution approving the interorganizational cooperation and service agreement between the City of Grand Rapids and Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc.
Support.
All right, so commissioners, we've had this in the past. This is before us again, and I'll turn it to
Yeah, we just can't get enough today.
That's
So
right.
here we are.
Eric and Chris.
Yep. So this is the way we work together as organizations. We started out with a term sheet. The term sheet has worked very well, and now we have an agreement because the term sheet was designed to eventually morph into an agreement. And this agreement, there are a few tweaks from the term sheet based on our learned experience, but everything's good, and we're ready to move forward. Anything you'd like to say?
The only thing I'll say is that we built the original agreement, and this is at really the nascent stage of Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. forming. And so there were a lot of conceptual elements in the previous iteration. It was designed to have a finite term, and so that's compelled us to sit back down and say what's working, what's not working. How do we want to remove some of these elements that are no longer germane to the relationship that we have today, and how do we make sure that we've got that clarity about how we're going to continue working together to do great things with one another moving forward. So this helps to clean up some of those elements and then provide us with that ongoing working relationship.
All right, commissioners, questions, comments? Pretty straightforward. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, next that will take us to a resolution authorizing an agreement to lend artwork to the Gerald R. Ford International Airport. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support?
All right, Mr. Tom Almonte, you've been helping with this, and I'll start with you.
Yes, Mayor. And this is an exciting opportunity to actually work with one of our partners, the airport, and we have the CEO, Jim, of the airport here today. And this is really part of the vision that the airport has to showcase West Michigan. And what a great opportunity to actually land a piece of art that is known not only to our community, but to the region, so actually it can be showcased in a place where people not only come in here to visit, but people come to stay here and make this their community. So we can showcase a piece that actually is known to everyone. So we had Jim here in the audience, and maybe he wants to make a couple comments about the vision, but I just want to say thank you. This was one of those projects that's very exciting to work with the partners to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for your work. And Jim, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Mayor and Commissioners. We appreciate your consideration. I think I'm a newcomer, so sort of like Commissioner Jones, I'm the new person on the block. But part of the mission that we're trying to accomplish at the airport, we're getting through phase one of our Gateway Transformation Project that should be wrapping up in the next several weeks with a big ribbon cutting we hope to see you at in about a month. But part of what I'm trying to do, and our team is trying to do, is bring the community into the airport. Over 99% of our passengers are either from West Michigan, Grand Rapids, or they're coming here with purpose. They're not connecting through other places. And one of the things that we see as we go through the development is maybe we could focus more. I won't say a lack, but we could focus more on an identity of the community into the airport. We're trying to do more and more of that. Our new restaurant is going to be a founder's restaurant, so bar and restaurant. So the idea there is to bring those known entities. Of course, Grand Rapids is known for the Calder, and we do have a small, it was a mock-up for lighting, Calder at the end of Concourse B, but having to be able to display on loan from the city the flying colors of the U.S. In the airport, aviation related. We're having a lot more and more visitors come to the airport. We think it would be a great opportunity to display that, to show the connection to aviation, to show the connection to Calder, and ultimately the community. For the first time, I've asked the staff, and we are now going to be a venue for Art Prize. So again, bringing those components of the community in, this would help do that. So we certainly appreciate, Greg and Tom, and your consideration in making this happen. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about the display, but it will be certainly in an area that's very visible to the public, accessible, and well protected, of course. Airport's pretty secure to begin with, let's hope. So planes should do well. But I appreciate it and happy to answer any questions about this or the airport you might have.
Great. So, Jim, just a couple things. One, thank you for being here. I have to say, when this idea was brought to me, I thought immediately that it was a great idea. As many of you know, we have this beautiful piece created by Alexander Calder sitting on the main floor of City Hall that I believe is terribly underappreciated. And so this really gives it a space that I believe that it deserves. And so I was excited to see this. So congratulations on getting us to where we are today. I know that you already met with the Arts Advisory Council, and there's been a lot of discussion about this. So thank you.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. The only thing that we may have trouble with is getting everyone's faces in the little windows of the plane, because there will be no disrespect to the artists.
The other item, and I'll see if commissioners have any questions. I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate the changes at the airport, but also in the gift shop that you have highlighted all things Grand Rapids and local. I really love the changes, and when I walked in there, I was so proud to see all of the different items.
That store is a little under merchandised. I think you'll see more and more Grand Rapids and West Michigan items in there, and part of that story is exactly what's happened on pre-security. We have a small gift shop there that was originally just going to be named after the operator. And I sort of pushed back saying, no, it has to have an identity locally. They couldn't call it anything Grand Rapids because we have a touch of Grand Rapids beyond the checkpoint, so they called it Destination Michigan. Again, carrying Michigan, West Michigan merchandise, and of course, all the competing school merchandise, which sells really well. So,
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions about this item?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. It carries. All right. Thank you. All right, next that will take us to our fourth item. This is a resolution providing for the publication of an ordinance amending section 7.582, 7.585, 7.591, and 7.599 of Chapter 113 of Title 7 of the Code of the City of Grand Rapids, entitled Valet Parking.
So moved.
Support. Good job.
All right.
With all the numbers.
Morning.
Good
Mayor and
morning.
Commissioners. This is a little less exciting than all the other items you considered this morning.
No, this is very exciting.
But this is the nitty-gritty of city government, right? So, this resolution, again, is for publication, so you're not considering whether to adopt the ordinance. I just wanted to point that out up top. And then there's a typographical error in the text of the memo that's corrected in the actual resolution. The memo says that this would be considered August 22nd in next week's meeting, but that's not enough time for publication. So the resolution corrects that in item 3 in the resolution, that it would be considered for adoption September 12th. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention so you're not confused about what date the adoption is. But
Thank you.
The main thing here is to just do a little bit of cleanup to the valet ordinance. One item of, really the main thing, was to convert what's presently most of the violations of the valet parking ordinance are misdemeanors, and for enforcement purposes and equity and everything, it just makes more sense to have those be civil infractions. So that's one thing that this changes. And then it also adds language that's present in some of our other ordinances that touch on parking and mobility issues to allow authorized city employees, and those are people within the parking service department that already issue civil infraction tickets for other parking violations, to issue the civil infraction tickets that are being created in the valet parking ordinance. And so the purpose of that is to ease some of the enforcement burden on the police department, who have higher priority things to take care of. And then the final thing that this does is creates what's called joint and several liability between the employees and the actual licensee. So, and then it provides that any infraction ticket would be against the licensee and not the employee. So that if a valet operator is telling its employees to take cars in the street instead of in the loading zone, that should be on the company and not the 18-year-old parking cars. So that's the idea. Josh, do you have anything to add? So unless there are any questions, that's
All right.
sort of the gist
I'll see
of
if
it.
there are questions. Commissioners? Commissioner Kelly?
Well, I thank you for working on this. I'm going to have to tease one of our appointees that she missed this opportunity. She's so good at picking out things that we need to watch for under the law. And and also very much appreciate your taking some of the burden off of our officers so that they don't have to do this downtown. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, thank you. That will take us next to a resolution providing for the publication of an ordinance amending Section 10.69 of Chapter 181 of Title 10 of the Code of the City of Grand Rapids entitled General Traffic Regulations.
So moved.
Support.
All right, you want to tell us about this one too?
Sure. So this is sort of continuing in the cleanup, and this amends just one section of the traffic regulations, and this is a section that, again, authorizes police and various, but also the same group of authorized city employees to issue parking civil infractions. And so this just, because we're adding valet, and we have also the food truck, there are parking violations within the food truck ordinance and within the pedicab or passenger-powered vehicle ordinance. So it's cleanup to make it explicit that those groups of employees can issue parking civil infractions for any parking violation that's somewhere else other than Title 10. So we're just trying to wrap our arms around all the parking violations that are elsewhere in the code, and again, make it explicit that those designated employees are authorized to issue the civil infractions.
Great. Pretty straightforward. Commissioners, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, next that will take us to a resolution setting a public hearing on August 22nd in accordance with the City of Grand Rapids Administrative Policy 15-03. This is acquisition and use of surveillance equipment and surveillance services regarding the Grand Rapids Fire Department proposed unmanned aerial vehicle program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning,
Oh,
Mayor.
hold on one second, Chief. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, now it's on the table. Welcome, Chief.
Good morning. So we would ask that you pass a resolution today accepting that public hearing set for the 22nd. We have done extensive research over the last year into this UAV program. We believe that, we are one of the first people in Western Michigan to really go through these steps under best practices and do the due diligence to be very intelligent and deliberate about the policy that the city has set forth, as well as standard operating procedures that would govern the use of this vehicle. We have worked closely with the legal department, with the Michigami group, with our own internal personnel to be able to adopt policy and standard operating guidelines. We have also approached the ACLU to seek their input into our policies and guidelines, and they have weighed in on those decisions, and we have adapted our policy to meet those recommendations that they had made. So we know that across the country that several hundred fire departments are going in this direction. We do see the benefit in being able to gain better situational awareness, in being able to adapt with our special teams for river rescue, for technical rescue and hazardous materials in the event of natural disasters, to be able to gain that awareness of what the scope of the incident is. So that's where we see the benefits. This is not something that we will be utilizing on a daily basis by any means. And we, I believe, are at a point right now where we're looking to seek public input to then be able to come to you in order to make a better decision in the end.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner?
Can you elaborate on the comments from the ACLU? I know that when we talk about drones and privacy, that, we're going to get questions from our constituents, and I appreciate their being willing to weigh in and help reassure constituents that we're protecting privacy while also promoting safety.
Shirley, I have Krista here with me, and Krista, could you talk to those comments?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Are those in response to comments from the Friday email? Okay. So I believe the first question was regarding let me just read it. So the prohibitions on surveillance and weaponization of the policy utilized by the GRFD. They wanted to ensure that the restrictions are intended to apply as well as to other departments who may utilize the drones under the terms of the policy. Can you confirm this? Yes, so these policies are written by and for the GR Fire Department because they will be the ones authorized under the FAA to operate the drone. But pursuant to the SOG, in instances which another department might request a drone or UAV under an emergency situation, they would have to agree to the terms of use similar to what the fire department already utilizes pursuant to the terms agreed upon in this policy and standard operating guideline. The second question asks, it states that the permitted surveillance for damage assessment was not limited to large-scale emergencies, as had been suggested by the ACLU. I think that was just merely an overlook, because if you look at the policy, it is limited. Emergency operation is defined as damage assessment for large-scale emergencies, so I believe that's been addressed. Finally, a time limit for documenting the reasons for not obtaining a warrant. The reasons for obtaining a warrant or not obtaining a warrant would have to go into the report that you write for the incident, which, as a business record is created at or near the time of the work. So we don't see a need for that because they would just be documenting that as part of their normal workflow. Any other questions?
All right. Commissioners, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will call the question. And again, Commissioners, this is setting a public hearing on August 22nd.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Thank you, Chief. All right, and last item before us today, and this is a resolution designating the City Water Building at 1101 Monroe Avenue Northwest as a venue during Art Prize 2017 and authorizing the execution of a hosting agreement. Can I get a motion?
Support.
All right, so Commissioners, I think many of us went and saw Art Prize in our water building last year. It was really an incredible venue. So we are moving forward with looking at doing that again this year, and Tom's been working on this. So Tom, you want to tell us about this?
Sure, Mayor, Commissioners. As the Mayor stated, this is the second year using, this is the water building that is currently vacant. I think last year was very creative for Art Prize and Richard App this year in the public to really encourage the city to rethink how to use that space that's not being utilized and at this moment. And I think it was very successful. So much the Art Prize wanted to use it again this year. So what is before you is actually to use that space again this year. Similar to last year, we added a new element, and I included information is to utilize a portion of the parking lot. Art Prize been introducing for the last several years, the notion of interactive art. So this will be, as the Art Advisory Committee that reviewed this item stated, this will be the place to be.
All right. Yes.
So we have Richard App in here, and I want to say thank you for really just encouraging the city to be creative in how we use the spaces that we have. This item, the new item addition to this space was reviewed initially by the fire department. Obviously has to do with fire, and they have said they don't have any concerns. So it will follow the normal review of all of the city departments. But I think it's a great way of showcasing a space that's just sitting there vacant.
Yeah.
And so I want to say thank you to Art Prize and Richard App.
Great. Rich, you want to come forward and share with us your vision for this space this year? I don't know how much of it is confidential, but you're welcome to come up and say a few words if you'd like. Welcome.
Hello, folks. So last year, we had 52 pieces at the City Water Building. Many were 2D. Actually, one of the 2D pieces that won the jury grand prize was at the space, as you may know. This year, what I've invited artists to do, we actually have 11 less pieces, but they're much stronger pieces, a lot of installation pieces. And in talking with Christian from Art Prize and with Neil from Chicago, they're going to be doing something that is, well, it's right up my alley, but it's also, I think it's something that's completely unique, and it's also going to bring people down during the evening of Art Prize, which has always been a challenge, especially on the outer fringe. So I'm going to give Neil a few minutes to talk about his piece, and look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks at the Water Building.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
Congratulations, City Manager.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thanks. My name is Neil Morplank, Mayor, Commissioners. So I'm bringing what I call Captain Nemo's Flaming Carnival, which is essentially, it's a fire show, but it's also interactive art. So there are games like Flaming Skee Ball and Flaming Ping Pong, and there's a Beanbag Clown game. And then we have various kind of venues and stages where people can spin fire or do aerial silks. We're trying to work as much as possible with local community arts and performers, as well as during the day do family-friendly stuff. We'd like to work with maker spaces and kind of do educational things around the kind of things we do. It involves fire, which is fun.
Which is why our fire department is present today. And just colleagues, I just want to assure you they have given the green light and said that they think this is acceptable and safe.
Right. And to speak to that, while I don't currently do this professionally, I've been doing it for 15 years, 6 in a fairly large-scale way, and just came back from Maker Faire in Detroit at the Henry Ford in Dearborn, and never any incidents of any kind. So I appreciate the fire department's investment and help. And I think Richard is right. We're going to try to do things during the day, but we think the nighttime is something that we can really own this year. So we appreciate your consideration.
Very cool. Let me see if my colleagues have questions. Questions, Commissioners?
I just want to let the record state that I actually had a piece that was displayed last year in the City Water Building, and last checked on eBay, I think it was up to $1.05. So just want to make that known. Yeah.
We better get on there and bid.
Very nice. All right. Any other questions or comments, Commissioners? Commissioner?
I just want to say a note of appreciation to Rich and to you about putting this all together. It sounds crazy, and they must be related to you, Greg, because
we're brothers.
All along you have used that word, and at the same time, I think that has allowed us to build platforms from which to do really fun, innovative things. So I remember the slide downtown at one point, the water slide, and so we're continuing in that tradition. So thank you all for bringing this to Grand Rapids.
All right.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you. Anything to add from the fire department? Did I accurately say what you're thinking?
As you know, Mayor, Commissioners, Fire Department has been an integral partner of Art Prize since the very beginning, and we've learned along the way to work creatively with creative people. I think I'm pretty proud of our approach, and really the issues where the fire safety and then our operations, the water billing is not being used, but part of that, as you know, is the training center, and we have ongoing operations that we have need for. So working with Mr. Verplank has been a very open process, and I think that it's approved in principle, actually, when things are set up, and Mr. Verplank has agreed to that, that if there are any problems at that point, then we make adjustments and so forth. But I don't see any problems from the fire department point of view.
Thank you. And truly, thank you for your work. I think you said it beautifully. The fire department has really been incredible in working with Art Prize and that entire team. So thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, so Commissioners, one final thing. I want to publicly thank our amazing city clerk for running another smooth election. So that occurred last week. We really appreciate all the time and energy that went into that. I know many of us, if not all of us, were out and about that night. And so I'll congratulate our colleague, Commissioner Jones, for winning the primary, as well as who will soon be a colleague of ours, and that is Kurt Hart. So congratulations to you and Kurt. And then we also have a November election.
Yes, we do.
As a reminder that you will now start gearing up for.
Yes.
We have 2 millages. We have Library and Rapid, and we have Commissioner Lanier, who will be on the ballot in the 3rd Ward. So, all right. So, Commissioners, with that, I need a motion to go into executive session. Again, this is for 2 reasons. One, we have pending litigation we need to discuss, and then land acquisition. Can I get a motion?
Support.
All right, and this is a voice call. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
And yes. So our executive session is going to move down to the 6th floor in the attorney's office. All right. Yeah.